Yeah.
You are like an encyclopedia, huh?
It's my brain is spongy for some things, and
Right.
like silly
Well,
things
what's
like
your
track
review
times
like? How
too.
many did you say? 1,500 things? Is that a real number, by the way, or are you like just pulling something out
Uh,
of your butt?
I remember seeing that I had posted over 1,000 years ago, so
Jesus
it's
Christ.
probably more than 2,000. But
Holy shit, dude. Well,
I
to
didn't
do
want to
that,
inflate the
like,
numbers.
you remember, like, all these weird bands. And so, well, I mean, I'm sure they. Welcome to the 119th episode of the Casa Ends Creation. I'm your host, Chris Deering. This is the show interview bands and public figures from the Mathcore and Mathcore adjacent community. My guest today is the owner of Zega Beach Records, Open Mind Saturated Brain, and he's a part of a bunch of different projects and bands. Welcome in, David Norman. How's it going?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Dude, absolutely. Thank you for coming on. Can you just give people a brief overview of who you are, just so people have a better idea?
Sure. You want to touch on the music stuff specifically, or?
Just like what you're currently doing. Like, I understand you got Zega Beach, you got Tomb Tree tapes. What else you got going on?
Yeah. So, okay. Got Zega Beach Records is the first label I started, and then the second one was Tomb Tree Tapes. Third label that just recently started is Soft Seed Music. I do a blog called Open Mind Saturated Brain, but to be honest, I do that a lot less now and just kind of focus on the podcast. I've had Chris on my podcast. So that's just Open Mind Saturated Brain podcast. And then been in a bunch of bands, but just currently it's Our Future is an Absolute Shadow and Apostles of Eris.
Alrighty. Jesus Christ, it's a lot of stuff, dude. Like, I have no idea how you can keep it all together. I'm having trouble with two things, and you're over here with like six.
It's literally like my hobby and my life kind of thing, and it's not in like a bad way at all. So my hobby kind of became my job too. So it's literally all I think about and do, and it's very awesome and fulfilling.
That's awesome, man. So you don't have a job outside of this, like this pays your bills and all this stuff.
I wouldn't say that.
Oh,
My
okay.
wife helps pay a lot of the bills. But yeah,
Getting there. You're getting there.
I've yes, it like the Zagma Beach is self sufficient at this point. So we're just trying to get it into what we hope is like just a 2 week cycle. We can release stuff kind of every 2 weeks and not have to worry about like me being like, I don't know if I can pay my mortgage and do this release this month kind of thing. So
I
uh,
gotcha. It's tough, dude.
yeah.
Slitwick in chat says, Dave, I love you. Our feature is an absolute shadow. Is so good. Listen if you haven't. I guess he's telling other people to listen if you haven't, because obviously you've listened to it. Anyway,
Thanks.
so tell me about how you got into music. What made you start really digging music? Not screamo in particular. I mean music in general.
I mean, like, I grew up. I remember my parents having like a sound system with a record player and stuff when I was young, and I'm talking 4 or 5 years old in my family room. I remember, like, I always ask people their first musical memory. Mine is listening to like the Monster Mash 7-inch on with like really big headphones on. Probably were big as my head at that point. Jeez. And the beginning part or the end part has monsters making sounds. And I would listen to it and then I would cry because I would get scared. And then I would listen to it again. My parents would be like, stop that. And they're like, no, I like it. And then eventually yeah. So I remember, getting really early stuff from.
I imagine it was just some guy going like grrr or something, right?
Oh, I haven't re-listened in 30 years. I'm sure. No, I think it's like a legitimate Halloween style. And they even have like, oh, now I'm just thinking of Thriller in my head.
That's fucking awesome.
Too many memories.
So what was the first album that you bought?
Uh, the first cassette that I remember purchasing was Moist. Sliver? One of the two. It's like a 1994 Canadian, Vancouver actually band. They got kind of big. David Usher did a solo thing afterwards. I remember the first cassette that I ever owned that I was given by my parents that I listened the hell out of was it was like a rap compilation with. That's why I found out about Sir Mix-a-Lot and technotronic and stuff like that. So I was into like really bad 80s music, I guess, when I was really young, because it was the 80s. So it makes sense.
I keep forgetting you're from Canada. So is Moist like a pop band from Canada then?
They would be
like top
classed in the
40s?
alternative realm. They were under like the much music umbrella because you have to play so much Canadian content, and we didn't have MTV in Canada, and there was no internet at that point, so no one's streaming that stuff. So literally all there was much music. So they would really push a lot of Canadian alternative artists because we had some really good alternative bands. So I really don't know how many made the crossover, like Tea Party and Econoline Crush and Stabbing Westward and Our Lady Peace. There's so many of them, but you don't really hear about them outside of Canada, as far as I know.
Okay. What's the first concert you attended?
I'm gonna go with like a more an actual concert, as opposed to like a friend show, because I don't even know, like Lucky Number 7, some crappy ska band from Whitby. I was friends with Protest the Hero and Happy Go Lucky, but I think that was after.
Look at you flexing. I'm friends with Protest the Hero. Oh man.
Well, I figured Mathcore, like I used to see them when I was super young. And in my first band, I played with them a couple of times when they were Happy Go Lucky. So I'm trying to remember if that was before the No Effects show that I saw with Consumed, and was it Less Than Jake? It was like one of the skate ska bands, one of the crossover like Fat Wrecky style bands. It was Mad Caddies. That's who it was. It was Mad Caddies. So I feel like that was my first show because I love Consumed from Europe, and they came over for a tour, and I was like, I love No Effects too. So
okay. How was your first show? Were you like one of those scared kids kind of off to the side, or were you diving into the pit and stuff? I'm sure there's a pit at No Effect.
I feel like it was somewhere in between, but I didn't wear earplugs.
Ooh, bad idea. Bad move.
Oh, wow. I remember ringing for days after that. I think maybe for the first 10 shows, including like my friend shows that I went to, I didn't wear earplugs. And it wasn't until after that I started wearing them all the time.
Yeah, I never wore them either for the beginning because it feels like... I don't know, kind of like properly. you're not masculine or whatever if you're wearing earplugs. Like it's the
I always thought about it as like no, for me it was like it was a muffled thing for sure. And then it got to the point later where if I forgot earplugs, I'm in the bathroom getting toilet paper, like stuffing it in my ears, and there's nothing masculine about that.
Dude, there's been times when I want earplugs and they're not around, and I never thought about getting toilet paper and shoving in my ears. I mean,
it's not comparable, but I mean, it's very close. You can definitely block 60 to 70% of the sound with that. Yeah.
So let's talk about you getting bands and stuff. The first band is In Debt. Is that correct?
Oh yeah.
I couldn't find anything on them at all. So
good. No, that was so my friend's little brother, when I was in high school, sang. He was a vocalist. He said he was a vocalist, and I knew a guy who played guitar at my work at Canadian Tire, like the big, whatever, Canadian big Walmart style thing with a lot of auto stuff. Not relevant. And he's like, you should play bass, and then we could just start a band. And I was like, oh, okay, because he said he knew a drummer too. So then we started In Debt, and we were a band for like 2 years. We played 2-3 shows. Both of them were with Happy Go Lucky because they were at our high school too. So we were all like friends. And I played bass and did backing vocals. It was skate punk. It was very No Effects. It was No Effects. We were trying to be No Effects. Dual vocals, okay. Super study. Not very good.
Was the band financially in debt?
We were trying to think of a name, and I remember our singer was like, let's call it Pants Patrol. And the guitarist and I were like, oh my God, no. And then I'm like, I'm in debt. Are you in debt? And then all of us were like, yes, I'm in debt. And like, that's the band name. And then as soon as we would try to explain it to people, like, what's your band name? In Debt. And they're like, what? It's hard, dude. It's hard. It's a hard, like 2-word. If you isolate it, it's hard to pick up on it, I find. So
no, I think it's great, man. I love the bands whose names can be used as jokes, just like being up on stage. Hi, we're in debt.
Yep. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So this is before you got exposed to screamo and stuff, I assume, then, or this is before you like, really fell in
Yes.
love with it.
So yeah, I got into punk in 1997 after being into it's hard into a couple things like Everclear and White Zombie and Pantera.
Okay.
Sugar Ray's older stuff like
Okay, getting a little
Floored.
heavier then, a little heavier.
Yeah, and then I my friend showed me NoFX, and I fell down the punk rabbit hole. And over a couple of years, like I really got into all of the Epitaph stuff and the Fat Wreck stuff because of NoFX. So those two labels were kind of like my guiding force. I found out about Death by Stereo. Hated the yelling, screaming, whatever that was, and I just liked his singing thing. And then after a while, I was like, oh no, I like the heavy stuff too. And then I got refused because they were a heavier band on Epitaph.
Okay.
And yeah,
I think we
and
followed the same trajectory. Actually, we both hated the screamo stuff at the beginning.
Yeah, I was not a fan. It took the half and half to sell me. And now people are like, oh, you like screaming? Like, why? Like, because it sounds awesome. Like, that's not a good reason to, yeah, that doesn't help you, does it? It sounds terrible to you. It's emotional. I don't know. I love the power and the sound itself, which is weird because I don't like deathy metal vocals, but I love shrieky vocals. I find that a very peculiar thing. But
I guess the shrieky ones are more like emotional or whatever. Like the death ones, I don't know. It's like not the same. You have to move your mouth to make the death metal vocal. You know what I mean? The higher screechy ones. What's up? Can you not hear me?
No. Two things. You're right, but also maybe it's the Monster Mash 7-inch that I was. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the monster sounds.
Okay, we're uncovering the childhood scars here.
You should have seen my eyes go wide when I realized that. I'm like, maybe that's what it is. But no,
whenever you're like doing the high screeches, you don't have to like change anything in your like facial structure or whatever. It's just like this comes out. Like I know it sounds stupid, but I could totally see it. That's like why, you know what I mean? Why that is more emotional for you, you know?
There's definitely something about it. Like when I hear, and I wouldn't call them, they wouldn't even be death metal vocals. Some people scream in a manner that is them making a gurgling, puking sound in their throats.
Yeah,
not
tunnel
like
throats.
A real scream.
Tunnel throating, yeah.
Oh, okay, I call those puke vocals. I hate puke vocals, and I think death metal, not all of them, but like at least how I imagine how the vocal itself is regurgitated out or whatever. It's more of like holding it under your breath and like making like an echoing thing. And I don't know. I feel like you have to get really close to the mic and turn the volume up to do it. But again, I don't know what I'm doing. I just like the shrieking stuff. So.
But anyway, so get back in here. You were in a band called Galima. That's the next one, right? And that was an actual screamo band, right?
Oh, you found the YouTube thing for that?
I listened to every band you were in, actually. So,
sorry. So
it's all good. Man. It's all good. Just don't make any more music, okay?
That wasn't even really a band. It was the other guys. Those were my brother's friends and like friends with the protest guys. So they were all like, they were good musicians. They knew what they were doing. And they like kind of wrote this thing, and then they sent it to me saying, I think, I was supposed to play bass initially. And I listened to what they were writing, and I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I play skate punk and I've never learned music. I don't know what's going on. But then I had started, I used to really like Thrice, Illusion of Safety and Identity Crisis and that stuff. So I would hold when people were at home, I would hold my little boombox up to my face at full volume, and I would scream along with it to try to like, whatever. And they came home one time and they heard me doing that, and they were like, yo, your screaming is sick. And I was like, so embarrassed. But I think because of that, they asked me one time, they're like, do you want to do vocals to these songs you recorded? It's like demo versions. And then when you come back from university during the summer, we can like fully do it. But it never materialized. I did like 4 out of the 5 songs, I think. And then that was it. And I lost the stems and all that stuff. So that's why if you listen to some of the stuff, the vocals were way too loud sometimes. I would love to go back and fix that, but it is long gone.
I got you, man. I think we started screaming the same way too, just I think everybody does actually, right?
Oh,
Screaming in front of your whatever you call it, boom boxes or whatever. You have one of those set up and you just go to town.
Tape CD thing, whatever that was. Yeah.
Yeah, one of those things. Man, there's people that would have no contact with the cassette ever and have no idea what the hell we're talking about. Like boom boxes. What is this? You know what I mean? So, just another time, man.
Yeah. Go listen to Graph Warlock. I don't know. Go pick up the Doom box. It'll help you understand while also being amazing.
There you go. So it seemed like I don't know if you were trying to like make a career out of it or whatever, of journalism or whatever, but you started Open Mind Saturated Brain, 13. The next thing, moving on, right? And then it was Zegma later on that year. But so why did you start Open Mind Saturated Brain?
I think that was primarily my wife's idea. She was like, you should start a blog because you know so much about like Screamo and stuff. And I remember
you'd gone way down the hole at this point then, like.
Yeah, I got into Screamo in 2001, 2002 after reading like a Sasha City of Caterpillar review on punknews.org. I hate that website now. But that website was the one that introduced me to that because he used to have staff writers who knew what they were talking about. So yeah, I went down the rabbit hole then and
11 years.
And I'm currently at the center of the earth burning in Screamo magma because I have not stopped digging.
So how old were you when you started Open Mind Saturated Brain then?
2013 would have made me 32. Yeah, 32.
Okay. I thought you were a lot younger than that, honestly. Like, I'm not even just saying that.
No.
I totally thought you were younger than that. Okay.
No, from 20 to 30s, it's like a lost period of time for me. My life didn't start till 30, really.
So, how did it go with Open Mind Saturated Brain? Like, were you confident this was going to take off? Was it hard to get people to pay attention?
No, man. And think about it as like it was just something to do. Like at that point, we didn't have any kids, and my job was teaching English on the computer to people at that point, it was South Korea. So I was on the computer all day, looking at music, reading reviews. And I realized that I'd accumulated a lot of stuff that people weren't really talking about on the internet. And that was before, I don't know. That was like kind of before the Bandcamp days where like all of the stuff has been like pulled out of the archives and thrown on Bandcamp from all these people.
Right,
so
before like really the huge tidal wave of music, like when people actually needed someone to show them things.
Yeah, totally. So a lot of the stuff, I couldn't even find on the internet. I never had SoulSeek though, and I was told that SoulSeek and still is fantastic for finding that kind of stuff.
I've never heard of that before.
Oh, really? Oh, I think it's like just the new Napster. If you know what
I used LimeWire back in the day.
Oh, okay. Yeah, same thing. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that.
That's all good. So I saw your first post actually was that one band had broken up and another one had gotten together. We've gotten together again. I forgot which ones they were. But so you were trying to be news at the same time as doing like reviews and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess so. That's so long ago. I'm going to say, I think that was just leading up to before the blog itself. Because one of my friends died who was in a band and stuff too, like right at that time. And I remember being like, oh, I should like post about that because it's related, not just to music, but to me. But I mean, I don't do that anymore because I know more people in the music scene and stuff like that. So I don't remember what I was thinking with those ones. I remember doing the show reviews early, and then I tried to do the first month. I did one review every day, and it destroyed me. And then I look back at the reviews, and it's like 4 sentences. Like, why was that so difficult for you? Then you look at like the Envy one, or the Blood Brothers, and it's just absolutely massive. Yeah. Or the Erased Poison the Well one, which I took down after the management came after me. So
why'd you take it down?
They had someone come after me because I had posted the MP3s of like their older stuff, and they were like, take it down and stuff. And I was like, oh, sorry. And for some reason I got really upset about it. I think, so much. I think because at that point they weren't a band and stuff. Like this would have been 2014. I don't think they had come back together, or I'm like no one needs to pay. Like these guys are doing other stuff now. Like if they're sitting at home still trying to like cash in off Poison the Well 6 years after the fact, I don't know, maybe find a job or like do something.
No, I'm the kind of guy that says you should post your releases for pay your own price or whatever. Name your price on Bandcamp.
Amen.
Like
Yep.
I feel like downloads should be just free, man. Just make this shit
Yep.
free.
No, I guess it's a bit different if the band pays for their own stuff and like they've, invested a bunch of money and then they charge like $8 for a digital LP. I'll be like, I can get down with that. But when I see labels posting stuff all the time for like $8 or $10, I'm kind of like, what are you doing?
Well, it's also a label. Like, how much of that really goes to the band? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I just think about it like I thought the idea of the label is to spread the band, and if there's one thing I know, putting releases up for any dollar amount drastically decreases the amount of downloads that you get. And someone like me, who is not a streaming guy, I am download or nothing. So if I just looked at something the other day that I wanted to download last night, and it was 4 songs, and they were all like 2 minutes, and it was $7 for the download.
Jeez.
And I was like, I will support an album for $8, but I'm not paying this. And so that band, I've already forgotten their name.
Yeah, no, that's happened a couple of times with me too.
I don't have that much money. I can't drop $7 for every EP and full length I want to listen to.
Right. Exactly. So you started Zega Beach. It was later that year. I think it was like in December or something like that. You put out the first Zampler.
Yeah, it was just an extension of the blog. I was getting. I think about it still to this day. Like Zegama would not be what it is without Open Mind, because I had, for the entire time, I have not so much now because Zegama is kind of its own thing and Open Mind is less of a thing, but I was getting access to material before it was ever released. People thinking that labels didn't even want to release it, like Crowning throwing me the EP and being like, hey, put this up, we're going to release it this date. And then like a few days later, I like messaged it back. I'm like, no, I'm going to release this and you're going to wait until January. And they were just like, oh, and I'm like, I feel like I'm doing the right thing now. This is how it's supposed to be done. So it was really good to have that like faucet of, that like secret faucet almost of just like tapped into the Screamo world, because there weren't that many blogs doing it. And because I had done the jump from blog to label, I was able to gather so much.
Yeah. So I know like today you could find like a community that like is devoted to Screamo stuff, like Scram Cave or whatever. And then there's Mathcore Index community and stuff. Did you feel like there was a community for Screamo at the time? I mean, obviously you did because you did the record label, but how did you feel like there was a community if there wasn't like a Facebook group or something like that?
Well, okay, so I was fully detached from the Screamo community from the first time I was submerged in 2001, 2002 until I went to an Animal Faces Loma Prieta show, aka my first Screamo show in Toronto in 2012, probably. And I guess maybe that same year, or maybe the year prior, I had found a couple of Facebook groups that none of them were called Screamo. They were called US Emo. They were called NARE, North American Real Emo. It was all about emo in 2010 to 2014. And if you had searched for that stuff, it's not so easy. But then, you type in the band name and all these posts from this emo group would show up. So I started off in a couple of those groups and they're all pretty much dead now. Which is why I started International End Music, because I saw those groups just dying. And it's like, I want to start a new group that I could just post in and have people post in and it'd be cool.
So did you start that around the same time as the record label then, or?
No, International End Music would have started when those particular Facebook groups were kind of imploding. Okay. So maybe like 2018, probably.
Okay.
It's pretty recent.
So, like, to me, looking in, I see you post about these bands I've never heard of before. I know of the bigger bands in the Screamo area, Screamo zone or whatever, but some of these I'm just like, who the heck is that? And then you're doing vinyl for them and such. So how do you find out about these bands? Like, where should I be look? I guess in International End Music, but where else? Like, is there a big community that I'm just not seeing that's out there?
I guess there's two. One to be self-fulfilling and the other to not be. One would be to go to the Open Mind Saturated Brain blog because not only have I reviewed over like 1,500 things,
I've seen the list. It's insane.
I do really the things that took me so long in those posts wasn't always the post itself. It's the for fans of. It's as I'm listening, I'm thinking, who does this sound like? And it's like if there's like one part that sounds like another band that I can remember, I will name that band. So I might have 1,500 reviews, but if in terms of bands mentioned and sounds like correlated in some way, there's got to be like 4,000 or something like that. So I honestly believe that's a really good resource because I have been listening for such a long time. And again, maybe if you're looking for the past 3-4 years, look elsewhere. But the other one is the Facebook community Twin Cities Screamo. There is no better place to just get bombarded by Screamo that I haven't even heard. I haven't heard of like 80% of the stuff that they post. And some of the stuff that they post, I've ended up releasing in some form because I'm just like, here's another one. What's that, 2003? How did I not hear this until now?
So you put like an album from 2003 like on vinyl now then, or?
Oh yeah, I've got one that's going to go to press soon from 1999. The Loftus one. Loftus is 2004, 2005.
Jeez, okay.
Just got the test press for that.
And people are like still like really hyped for those kinds of things. I know they are for like Mathcore Index, like old Mathcore bands are like selling out.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not releasing old Screamo bands vinyl that are like unheard of necessarily. In fact, most of the older Screamo stuff I'm releasing is on cassette because it was already released on vinyl because that's kind of how Screamo worked. It was mostly just vinyl. And now it's kind of, I don't even know. It's everything, I guess. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. There's another just tangent that just, yeah, rope me back in, pull me back in.
So it seemed like for a second there you were like kind of dipping your toes into more mathcore stuff. I know you did Lower Automation this year, but I remember coming in and seeing the Gift from God album in 2016 that you had helped put out. Then you did the See You Space Cowboy EP in 2017, or another split. Was it just a split, or were you on the EP also?
I did everything except for the demo at the beginning. Okay, so it was the first EP, the split, and I did the single for the storybook perspectives.
But it seemed like you hadn't done a lot of like mathcore stuff. Is there like a reason you stepped back from that, except for Lower Automation this year? Dope, by the way.
I don't know. I guess I'm still figuring out what mathcore means because I hear stuff like Nuva Oscura and I'm like, that's mathcore, right? And people are like, oh, it's like screaming. It's like mathy screaming stuff. I'm like, but so mathematical. And
I think we're all trying to figure out mathcore actually.
I still don't know what emo is. I don't know what I know what screamo is. That's like the only thing I think I know what that is. And I know what acoustic music is. That's pretty easy to figure out.
But no, yeah, there is a big overlap. That's why I do have like some screamo bands from time to time on the show here. But yeah, it's just I was just wondering, like, are you still interested in like releasing more metal leaning music?
Yeah, honestly, it's just like what really tickles my fancy. Because when I first heard the Lower Automation album, my first thought was this is really good, but it's not a Zega Beach style something. This is a Tomb Tree style something. And then I made the tapes and I kept listening to it. I'm like, no, this is so good that I don't care. I don't care. This is going on Zegma. Same thing happened with like Blue Youth. I knew Blue Youth was not in, that's like a noise rock.
The Maya Chun, right?
Pardon me?
Maya Chun, right?
No, that's Blue Noise. That's Blue Noise.
Okay.
Yeah, and it gets confusing. There's also a youth novel and what was the other one? Youth. Too many people had youth in their names. You know, there's this cycle of these things.
No, I gotcha.
Man, I keep losing where I'm at.
I think you were trying to describe what kind of bands you were trying.
Oh, like mathcore and stuff. Okay, so like, yeah, so with mathcore, it just depends. I think a big thing is the vocals, is what the vocals sound like.
So no Cookie Monster vocals, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, like straight up. If I'm such a vocal heavy guy that if something is mostly deep guttural, or I shouted and yelled, I can lose interest quickly. I really want fierce vocals or sometimes beautiful vocals. I'm very picky, and it's sometimes really hard to describe what it is that I want and need, but I get it most from screamo. But yeah, like the Loftus screaming is amazing. I love Machinist, and I've always loved Great Redneck Hope.
Oh, they're so good.
Me and Him, Call It Us.
Hell yeah.
Like those kind of like shriekier, like mathcore, MySpace, whatever bands.
Right.
Those are up my alley.
Those are definitely like prime examples of like screamo and mathcore. You know, being together.
And I talk about that a lot. I think that the mathcore community should look more into the screamo stuff, because I definitely dabble in the mathcore. You know, like Frontier is one of my favorite albums of the year. I don't even know if you can call like The Armed mathcore anymore, but like that's an excellent album. No,
I wouldn't call it mathcore, but yeah, it's an excellent album. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I do like mathcore, and it's like when I hear people who listen to like black metal, the not terrible kind, and even like new metal and metal. I'm like, why just come over for a second. Come listen to some of
black
this stuff.
metal is very close to a lot of like hard screamo music. I've found. Yeah, especially like the ones that the bands that you've been in, it seems like are pretty similar to like black metal like aesthetics.
Our Future definitely is the one that is most in that vein. I guess Miatej a little bit, if you really want to. It's kind of more grindy, but there's a bunch of stuff.
Well, you have a lot of like atmospheric sounds in the bands that you've been in.
Yeah,
that's more what I'm talking about.
It's never been me, which is very interesting. That just always happens because I don't play any instruments. So.
Well, let's go through them a little bit then. We have Mirtex next. I just found out how you're supposed to pronounce it on before we went live.
Yeah. There is no, like I think I said, they are all correct pronunciations because it's a silly name and I didn't make it up. The guy's solo project who it was, it's like his thing. And then he asked me to do vocals, but he was in like really huge screamo bands. Yaphet Kotto. Played bass in Yaphet Kotto for a while on the last album, and he was in Makara and the Anasazi. I feel like I'm missing one more. Jenny Piccolo, which are like, if you were to look back at like the screamo or like grind stuff, 3-1G even era. I think they were on 3-1G when they not. They're in one of the videos for it, Circumstantial Evidence. But anyway, yeah.
You are like an encyclopedia, huh?
It's my brain is spongy for some things, right. And like the silly things like track
review,
times
like
too.
How many did you say? 1,500 things? Is that a real number, by the way, or are you like just pulling something out of your butt?
I remember seeing that I had posted over 1,000 years ago, so it's probably more than 2,000. But
holy shit!
I didn't want to inflate the numbers.
You remember like all these weird bands, and so well, I mean, I'm sure they might even be big bands, and I'm just not familiar with them, but that's crazy. He's like over here rattling off these things. So after that, it seemed like you were getting a little bit serious with The World that summer. It's the first band you've been in that's got a Rate Your Music page. It's also got a Bandcamp, which the other ones haven't had. So what happened with The World that summer? Is that still a thing?
That was just a local band. I was putting on a show for Joliet and Life in Vacuum, and there was a guy who showed up and came early. Or maybe I did punk time and just ran the show late. So he was there on time. I don't know. And we were talking and he's like, I play drum. Near the end of the show, he had a really good time. He was like, I play drums. Do you want to be in like a hardcore band? I haven't played in a hardcore band or metal band in a long time. And I was like, yes, I already know one guy who wants to play guitar. We've been looking for a drummer. And he's like, oh, well, I know a bassist. And then I told my friend, the guitarist, he's like, I know another guitarist. So we're set. And then it was boom. We just were a band immediately. They wrote 3 songs the first practice. We played our first show like 3 months after with Ken Mode. So yeah.
All right.
It was pretty nice. And then I moved to New Zealand 2 years later and the band ended. So
I was going to ask you about that. So why'd you move to New Zealand?
A couple of things. We were really tired with Ontario in particular. And the Trump era had just been ushered in. And we were kind of just like, we'd already been.
Well, you're in Canada though, right? So like.
Yeah, but in time, I don't think that'll really matter. If things keep going the way they're going,
Oh, it's way worse
downhill.
Nowadays. So like, yeah.
Well, that's the thing. If Trump gets back in, which it sounds like he might. Like,
oh, he will. 100%. 100%.
What is, yeah. But yeah, so we'd been to New Zealand before too. We knew we loved it. And I had talked to some people about where would be a nice place to move. So we decided now is the time.
Dude, New Zealand is sick though. Like they've got the pictures I've seen of it are just amazing. I hear they have like really nice weather and such. So
yep,
that's awesome, definitely a good bug out place to go.
Yeah, no, I strong recommend. It didn't work out with visas. My wife got pregnant while we were there as well. So the birth would have happened 2 weeks after her visa ran out and all this kind of stuff. We're just like, it's not worth it. So we're like, what's the best thing in Canada that's like New Zealand? We're like, BC looks kind of like New Zealand and it's in Canada. So that's why we moved to this side.
So, well, like, why come back to Canada, period, if, you're worried about things in the future? Why not just go to, like, Europe or just stay in New Zealand?
Europe, we were looking at, like, Sweden stuff, but then Brexit happened. I had dual citizenship in England and would have had it across the EU, but then they got out, and I lost my dual citizenship in, like, all of those other countries. So I did not want to go to England. No offense, England. So yeah, no, at that point, Trump was still in. So yeah, I don't know. I think we were kind of like, we don't know where to go. This is like a safer place. And as soon as we moved out to the West Coast, especially when we moved to Vancouver Island, we were like, I don't want to leave. So there's no plans to move ever. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, while you were out there in New Zealand, that's where you started Swallow's Nest, right?
Yeah, before I went over, I messaged some groups because I was already in band fever because of the World That Summer. I was like, yo, I want to start a band. I posted in 2 New Zealand groups and I got like 3 responses. So I was in 2 bands before I arrived in New Zealand. Oh, and shit. I was only there for 4 months, but Swallow's Nest is the one that practiced every week. And everyone had like already played their instruments. So we wrote 7 songs in 4 months and recorded them all. And when I knew I was going to leave, I told the band, I was like, you should get another vocalist for this band because this band's awesome. And you can use all like my lyrics. Like I'm not a jerk. I'm not going to be like, you can't use my songs. So like Jörg, the bass player, was like, our other band broke up. So my partner Lana would love to do vocals. And I'm like, I love Lana. So let's bring her in. So we also went on tour with that band after I'd moved back to Canada. I guess like it would have been 2 years later, we went on a tour. So I hadn't played with them in 2 years and we went over and played Europe. So it was really cool. And then their band I was in was Emo Lenvi. All of us were kind of like, all of them were like learning their instruments and we weren't practicing every week. So
are there recordings of it?
There are recordings of it, practice space recordings.
What was it called again?
Emo Lenvi. Emo, EMO, space. And it's a guy's name. It's Erno Lenvi, but on the book, the R and the N looked so close together, we thought it said emo. So that's why it's Emo Lenvi. LENDVIA? AI, I think.
Alrighty, I'm going to try to find this.
Don't. Listen to all the others. If you're anyone listening, listen to all the other stuff first. Maybe
everybody else in that band is like, what the hell, dude? Like, I thought we were pretty good. What's going on, man?
no proper recordings, only 1 live show and probably like 14 practices with everyone like learning their instruments for the first time. So it was hard.
Okay.
I still like it though.
So
just don't want to share it with everyone else.
So how is it like running the label from New Zealand? I bet shipping must have been insane.
Oh, it sucked. The whole experience was like, not the whole experience, but the label experience in New Zealand was not fun. But I had Nate from No Funeral Records kind of doing shipping and had most of my stock still here in Canada. The idea was for him to ship that stuff over later on. But then I was like, I'm coming home. I'm coming back to the other side of the country. So he eventually shipped all that stuff on a giant skid over to BC. And I got all the rest of the ZBR stock back later on. In that capacity. But yeah, shipping from New Zealand, not getting any sales. Everything I released during that time, if you watch the Out Past the Rings YouTube series, I talk about as like the lost period, because
really?
I was in New Zealand and the stuff I was releasing just was not, there was no traction. I still, everything from that era, I still like have a bunch of copies of, except for Respire.
Damn, dude, that sucks, man. And yeah, I forgot to mention the what did you call it? Out Past the Rings? Was that it?
Yeah, it's when COVID started, I just started doing, I like did one for the very first sampler CD that I made for Zegma, and I was just like told the history of it and like what it is.
Yeah, I've
like,
seen a couple of those. I haven't seen every one of them, but they're really like interesting whenever I get a chance to check them out.
Yeah, they got the back flaps that, and you can like stand it up and stuff. But yeah, so I asked if people wanted to see more, and they were like, well, my friends were like, yes, please. So
I was one of those people I told you to do more because I thought it was interesting.
Oh, were you? Okay, there we go. Yeah, you're one of my friends. So yeah, I saw the views going up. Everyone was in isolation, especially during that point. So I was kind of pumping them out, and people were saying like, "Oh, I love when these videos are posted." So it was one of the only times that I was getting almost like direct messages like, "This is helping improve my day," and I was like, "Oh, okay. This is just me being an idiot talking about stuff I released forever ago that I couldn't sell."
I couldn't sell, yeah. So whenever you came back to Canada, you started Apostle of Eris. Is that how you pronounce that?
Oh, yeah, I didn't start that. That is Jesse Mowry, and Apostles of Eris and World That Summer did a split. And Jesse was the touring member of Mia Tej as well, the bassist. So he and I were like besties. And when I didn't have any more projects, he was just like, "Do you want to do vocals in Apostles of Eris? Because I don't want to always do vocals." So now we both do vocals, but I usually take over the lyrical stuff. But I mean, next two songs we're doing, I'm like, I don't want to do the lyrics first. You do them. So he's going to do he'll literally do everything first. And then I'll add one layer of vocals to the song. And I get to be called a member of this band. But it's all Jesse Mowry. That guy is a genius. If you listen to that stuff, there's no like programmed drums. He does everything. He records it himself. And most of the stuff he like mixed and mastered himself too. He's just, he's a maniac.
So this is an ongoing project then? This is still happening?
Yeah, he started it in like 2012 or something. Okay. And I didn't officially join until the Raining split, which would have been maybe 2017 or so.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. Do y'all like play shows and stuff then?
We tried to play one show at Swamp Fest 2, and because Jesse does all the stuff, he had programmed the drums and the bass and like one guitar, and then he was going to do the other guitar and vocals, and I was going to do vocals, but he couldn't hear the stuff that was pre-programmed. So halfway through the first song, he was like, we're done. And I was like, oh.
I just shut it down.
Oh, he shut down. He shut it down. Made sense. He couldn't even hear what he was doing. So,
yeah.
But yeah. So like, there is a chance that we might play a show. His idea is to get, he would play drums and he would do the guitars and stuff pre-programmed, because he said his parts are very weird and he think it might be, I don't know, awkward for people to play. So it'd be easier to just do it that way. So the idea is to play shows, but COVID.
Yeah, no, I got you, man. I got you. So you started, I started seeing these pictures of these tapes that were like just beautiful. There's like all kinds of swirly art and stuff on them. And I find out they're coming from Tomb Tree Tapes. So how'd you get into dipping tapes, man? Because it's fucking sick.
It actually started with ZBR. It was a Mia Tej. It was the very last Mia Tej release I had seen back in 2012, like before I'd even started a label, from one of those like emo groups. Someone posted a video being like, "Yo, look what you can do with tapes." And there was this YouTube video of this guy like showing you how to dip a tape. And I was like, "Oh, that's really cool. I'm gonna do that one day." And I remembered like 7 years later, and I didn't remember. I was like, everything just clicked, and I'm like, now's the time. I'm gonna do this. I watched the video. It tells you what paints to buy. I bought the paints. And then I have now dipped probably 5,000 plus tapes. And to dip a tape means to take out the screws and take out all the guts and the stuff inside, put it back, and then dip it, and then let it dry, and then open it back up, and then to put all the stuff back inside, and then close it all back up again.
I was wondering how you did it with the tape, like with the stuff like inside of it. Okay, so you take that out before. I didn't even know you could take that stuff out.
only with ones with screws. So I tried once with the Rayleigh tapes because in the video, the guy's like, you can probably just do this with ones with no screws. They probably just, come apart. No, they don't. They rip and break and stuff when you try to do it. So
That's
don't
crazy, man.
do it if they don't have screws. Or if you're going to buy them and want someone to paint them, get them with screws in. Please, God.
I saw a video on, I think it was your Facebook or Zega Beach's Facebook or something, where you had like the contraption of tapes all lined up and stuff and dropping them in.
Is that the one with like the wheels and like the handles? That thing was a bust. That thing did not work at all because the paint would dry too quickly. And the tub I had made was too big as well. So I would have to use like a ton of paint and then it would dry too quickly. That was me trying to do the Protest the Hero tapes.
Does it dry like on the surface or like on the tape?
Well, because at that point COVID had hit, the place I usually got the paints, I couldn't order them, so I had to use these other inferior paints, and those ones, you like, once you pour the paint on top of the water, you have to swirl it and then dip within like 15 seconds or it dries. Like it dries enough that it cracks and breaks when you try to dip.
Right.
So that's what would happen with that big contraption. So I threw that in the garbage. It sucked. So I had to go back and I started doing 5 at a time, and I do 500.
Damn. That's dedication, man. But they look amazing. Oh my God. They look so freaking good, dude.
They do look nice. I am proud of a lot of them. It's one of those things where I've done so many that like I'll do some and I'm like, oh, these look like garbage. And then like someone like, or like my kids will come in and they'll be like, those are so sick. And I'm just like, it's all wrong. It's all wrong.
Nah, man, they look good. Like, even if you mess up on them, I'm sure they look amazing just because they're all like these weird colors, and you can't do that on tapes like without that kind of process.
Yeah, and I've learned how to like stamp. You can stamp over the paint, and I recently realized that you can get them with like a pre-stamp, and as long as you don't use any dark opaque ones, the pad print still comes through the swirls, as they did on the Care and Air tape for Phase Out. Yeah, that's it.
That's a sick record, man. That one's awesome.
Oh, it's amazing.
One of my favorite ones. So why don't you just like sell these just to bands, like have a little operation or whatever where you're selling
that them? That is what Tomb Tree started as. Tomb Street I can't say the other. It's called Tomb Tree now. Tomb Tree Tapes was started basically because I couldn't afford to release everything that I wanted to release. And instead of me saying no to people, I was like, okay, why don't you basically fund this release and you pay for the tapes and you pay me like $1 per tape, basically, and I will swirl the tapes. I will do the PR for you and we'll put the stuff on Tomb Tree. That's how Tomb Tree started. It was a way for me to help people still release stuff regardless of genre, and giving them, not that I had like, Tomb Tree does not have a big following in any way, shape, or form. But I would hit up the people that I would used to hit up for reviews for Zegama. So I kind of had some ins in that way. So, I've been able to get some Tomb Tree stuff premiered on bigger websites, and only because I already knew the people from through Zegama.
Right. But it doesn't work like that anymore now? You treat it more like a...
No. After like... it was between the 20th and 30th release. I think it was late teens or early 20s. Both Dave and I were like, we're releasing stuff that we don't really like love that much. Not that it's bad or anything like that. Just, it wasn't clicking with us. And we were like, if we really want to push this, we need to like curate it and, trim the fat and try to make this like a more legitimate like label. So we stopped doing the like you can fund your own release thing, just because I didn't have time to do it as well. And I was trying to focus
means
on
you don't have to dip like
1,000
tapes or something.
Yeah. It got to the point where we were like, this is amazing. We cannot release it on Zegama because it doesn't fit the genre or something like that. So that was another reason to just be like, dump it and just be like, let's just do it as a second label that can be, we literally called it like the Mathcore, like rock label almost.
Okay.
That also does Screamo.
Well, speaking of Screamo, after that you started Our Futures in Absolute Shadow. So what's going on with that?
that also, I didn't start that one, although I did join before anything was recorded. Adrian, the drummer from Old Soul, used to play in Cloud Rat, does a solo project, does a couple. One, Ellie Rath, I don't know, Elyrithe or something like that. He's super talented, and we were friends from him coming up and touring with Old Soul and stuff. He had posted, I'm going to write drum tracks. Does anyone want to write stuff to the drum tracks? And Jesse had responded to him, Jesse Mowry from Apostles of Eris and Mia Tej. And I guess they had recorded 2 songs, and he had told Adrian, hey, we should get Dave to do vocals because Dave gets his vocals done. I guess they never, if I'm doing vocals, I will get them done. I promise. So they tossed me 2 songs. I put 2 vocals down. They're like, oh, this is great. And then Adrian, I didn't know Adrian was going to put vocals down too. He has like the super high shriek, like scream. He put them down, and we were all kind of like, these are pretty good. So then they did all 10 that Adrian had done in that that recording session, and those came out on a 6-song EP, and then on a split 7-inch, and then on a comp. The other one was, so like we did like the 7 inches, and we did them on the Mages and stuff. So we got the really nice ones. Oh yeah,
that's sick.
So then just recently, no, it wasn't recently. It was like a year ago. Adrian wrote another 21 songs and sent them to Jesse. Yeah, here's 20. Well, he was like, here's 26 minutes. And then I realized, wow, it's 21 songs in the 26 minutes. But Jesse wrote stuff to all of those over the course of like 6 months. And I've put down all my demo vocals. So we've just been talking to Jack Shirley, and we're going to get him to mix everything. So I'm going to do the vocals like this month and next month. And then Adrian will put vocals on that. 5 of those songs already are finished because they're coming out on a split 12-inch called Cube, like 6 bands. And the other...
Wait, a 6-band split? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it was supposed to like... It was like 2 split 7 inches that came together, and then the other band was like, oh, we were also thinking of doing a split with this band. So we just kept like kind of adding bands. And then I'm like, I already did a split with 5 bands last year. Let's do a split with 6 bands. Then I asked Burial Etiquette to be on it, and now they're on it too, and their songs are sick. So after
on, man.
After that comes out in like spring, summer, then Our Future LP will probably come out. I don't know, like late 2022, early 2023. But we have a split 12-inch Apostles of Eris thing that's coming out in the summer. That's been done for like a year and a half. And then we have a split cassette that's coming out next month. That is the newest material. So the new material is going to come out like a year before the older material.
Nice. Okay.
So that's all that.
That's a lot of stuff. So then you come to your newest venture, Soft Seed Music.
Like I have another one? Oh,
I know,
okay,
right?
Yeah. I forgot. Oh, no. Yeah, Soft Seed. I guess Soft Seed primarily goes back to this band, Social Caterpillar, who sent me some stuff. They're friends with Snag. They did a split with Snag, but it's like acoustic, folksy, almost it's almost like the blues injection. It's really good. And I loved it. And I was like, I can't release this on Toontree. It's too soft. Like we're going away from this. This is the whole point of like doing Toontree is like at least semi-heavy, very good. This is not heavy at all. So I was like, I got to start another label. So Soft Seed is just supposed to be some super low run stuff that really catches my attention, because when it goes outside of metal and hardcore and screamo and stuff, I find I'm super picky for whatever reason.
Well, like, do your connections and stuff like go to that, work in that genre? You know what I mean? Do you feel like you can actually market this thing like, correctly?
I don't know. I don't know. Like I've got that Social Caterpillar album doesn't come out till March or April, but it's amazing. It's really, really good stuff, and I hope people check it out because it's awesome. But like Ophelia from Burial Etiquette, she is Opheliac, and that was the one of the albums I just released. And I mean, if you listen to Grouper or like any kind of synthy stuff, like that album is just amazing. That's going to be in like my top 10 of
That's one of the ones you have up on your
21.
Bandcamp, right?
That's the only full release that's out on Bandcamp.
Okay. I listened to that one and the other one with the guy from Lower Automation on it.
Right. Yeah. So I wouldn't say necessarily I can sell because I know like this genre crossover, but I'm getting releases because of the genre crossover. But I've also got Portugal the Man like live tapes just got shipped to me, so those will be coming out in like February or March. So I'd messaged some bands that I really liked that were rock, we'll say, and a couple messaged back. So like I'm going to be using like Ramona Cordova, if anyone knows who that is. Again, just someone I reached out to because I love their music and I was like, oh, this could fit on my label. Never been released on tape. Might as well send them a message, and paid off.
Well, hey, that's awesome that you're willing to like go out on a limb for stuff like this. Like you're investing like actual money into like a genre you're not super familiar with just because you like the music. That's sick.
It's just think of it as a hobby. That's all this stuff has always been. It's you spend money on your own hobbies. So I'll spend $200 to own a tape or something that I really wanted to. That deserves it, even if well, that's not totally true. I don't want a bunch of leftover copies because then I'm just creating garbage. But
I mean, you did tell me
that you
got all your stuff shipped back to you on a giant skid.
But then the US store opened for ZBR and things started moving a lot. Yeah, so it's been big props to Dave Cullen, who is half of Zega Beach Records, who does anything funny or awesome looking on all the social media pages. That's all Dave Cullen. He plays in Crowning too. Crowning's awesome.
That's sick. I had heard that there were 2 Daves. There's you and then this other guy. When did you hook up with him?
When I came back from when I was in New Zealand right before I came back, everyone kept saying like the reason why I don't order from you is because of Canadian shipping. And I'm just like, oh my God. So I did a post like free shipping. I don't care. I have so much stock. Like, give me some money. Like I'm losing money, but I'm going to get a $50 order that costs $20 to send. So I still make $30. Making $30 is better than making $0. It was at that point at the label. Like it just sucked. And Dave messaged me and was like, do you want me to open a US store for you? And I was like, yeah. And every time I try to pay him, he's just like, no, I just love
does
ZBR.
For free? Jesus.
He does everything. He has a very good job. He's a video editor at like a company. So not to say like he doesn't necessarily, he couldn't use it, but no, that's one of the reasons why I'm able to fully invest at this point is because he's really brought it to a new level with like doing the Instagram posts and like doing like legitimate videos, like that latest 2021 recap thing, which I don't know if you've seen it. It's like a 2-minute video. It's great. It's like a spiraling Zega Beach news beginning. It's awesome.
I need to check that out. Holy crap.
He's very talented. Very talented.
Nick Perry Rat in chat says, are you affiliated with the reggae group Zega Beach?
No, I checked. I remember when I started the label, I certainly checked some stuff out to see if Zega Beach was already a thing because I didn't want to get sued. There's a band called Zega Beach. Is that the one?
I guess I have no idea. There's someone in chat. But so just in case people like don't know, you named it that because it's a name from Starship Troopers, right?
It's a quote from Starship Troopers about a place that they want to go to. It's the way that the actor says Zega Beach. Huh? I just thought it was hilarious, and I vowed that if I ever started a label, I would use that as the label name. And 10 years after the fact, I did it.
Oh my gosh. Let's see. So we got a random question here. Ask everybody, what do you put on your hot dogs?
This coming from you, Chris, I know the truth.
Yeah.
You don't really even eat hot dogs.
Right. Well, I'm doing my research first. This is me doing research into like what works.
So, sure. Well, I was always a hamburger person. First of all, I like straight up refused hot dogs for the first like 12 years of my life.
You did? Come on. When you were a kid, you told me.
No, I did. No, I didn't like them. I was like, this tastes like tastes like gross plastic something. I don't know. I still think sausages and stuff taste really gross.
Really? Oh man, you're wrong.
But
dude.
like when I was in Miatej and I played in Cleveland, I played at a hot dog place, and they gave me the best hot dog that I've ever had, and it was like sriracha. God, what was on it? Sriracha, a little bit of lettuce. God, what was the main thing? It was God, what do you call that chicken?
Chicken?
It's like a shawarma. It's like a shawarma thing.
Okay.
It's like a shawarma chicken with like this. That's why they had the sriracha on there. Yeah, it was next level. It was amazing.
Okay, well I have to try that out sometime, man. So what's the best show you played?
Probably. Well, I guess the one I look back at most fondly is the Miatej show that we played in Baltimore, just because it was in a house and people were, out of all of the shows that I think I've played, that seemed like people were having the most fun. And then the guitarist broke the mic near the end of the show. So the very last song, I didn't have a mic, and I just like ran in with all the people. There's a video of it. It was very fun. And I went back and watched the video, like the full set recently, and I was like, that's a decent set. That was fun. So yeah, I'd go with that one.
Okay. What about
I've certainly played like really good shows at like fests in terms of like who else was playing, but that was my favorite, I guess, performance.
Right. People can like say they're best for like different reasons or whatever, but you're really part of like music whenever you say it's the one that you felt the connection to the crowd the most. So that's legit that it's that.
It was also the one where they were most intoxicated. So
Marble Caps Lock says Scramden. So
Scramden Yards, yeah, Scramden Yards in Baltimore, but there was also a Scramden Yards in Toronto where people put on shows. Where the Fox Mulder, like the pre-Respire people, they put on shows there too.
Scramden, that's hilarious.
Scramden Yards.
I love that. What's the worst show you played?
Probably on the first Miatej tour. Okay, so on the first tour, at that point I hadn't played a show. I hadn't even like done the World that summer yet, and we had never met as a band. So we practiced for like 2.5 hours the night before tour, and I went full out for like 2 hours on vocals.
Nice.
And then I went on a 9-day tour, and I was just wrecked. My voice was just so shot. So it's got to be one of those. I remember some of those middle shows, like Cleveland in particular, just being like, I couldn't talk, trying to like scream. It was like worse than a puke scream. It's just, it's so bad. So from a personal, like, I remember just feeling like I'm letting the band down because I suck, like downing honey and stuff. What are you doing?
Dude, that happened to me on my tour I recently went on. I totally shot my voice about halfway through, and it was like static coming out of my mouth when I was trying to talk. It was so bad.
Yeah, I like when I was on the European tour, I got to the point where I had to talk in like a low voice because it was the only way with it my voice wouldn't crack.
Right.
So then I got home, and for like 2 weeks, I kept forgetting to talk at a normal volume. Screaming's not great for you.
Right on. There's techniques for a reason. And then I just say, I take the techniques and I throw them out the window. And
yeah. As soon as you're running around or whatever on stage, and you're like, I can't hear my vocals, I have to scream louder. You're like, no.
So we'll close this out with your album of the year for last year.
So it's a tie. And we keep talking about low automation, so I can let that one slide. But Brazil's Campbell Trio released an album this year that wasn't like the 12-inch wasn't even released on Zegma. I just hounded them for so long because I loved it so much. I got to release it on tape, but that was written in like 2012 or something, 2013, and was like basically shelved and didn't come out until this year. And it is so good.
What was it again?
Campbell Trio.
Campbell Trio.
Their name is based off of Bruce Campbell, the actor from Evil Dead and stuff. So like their old website was the Bruce Campbell fan club trio. So Campbell Trio is about how there's three of them. They love Bruce Campbell.
Okay. Do they sing about like horror stuff then, or what's?
No.
It's so weird.
It's really good though. It's kind of like, it's like if I wouldn't really. It's really good, like rock music with a punk and like a post-hardcore edge, and he like screams, but he has an excellent singing voice. It's kind of like At the Drive-In, but more like punk hardcore with a little bit of screamo instead of like whatever you want to call At the Drive-In.
Okay. Well, that's about all I had to talk about. Was there something else you wanted to bring up, man?
I just wanted to thank you for having me on, and kudos to your podcast and your band, and getting in there. And like your podcast is I think I only listen to 2-3 other podcasts, and yours is one of them. So
thanks, man. I appreciate that.
You've had some killer bands on too. It's pretty crazy to come on after like Black Rose Burial and like Frontier and shit. It's like, what? Oh my god. Insane.
So, I do have to mention, do you do you have a podcast? Do you do it on like Spotify and stuff too, or?
No, I don't really.
It's just on Bandcamp? Yeah.
I'm Bandcamp through and through. I don't like Spotify. I don't have a Spotify account. If you send me a Spotify link, I always respond with, I don't have Spotify.
Okay. Is that like just a thing like against the company, or are you just like lazy?
I don't like streaming. I want that on my computer. Okay. So like I have a folder. Every time I get an album digitally, I go through the songs, and my favorite songs go into a folder, and that folder has like 11,000 songs. And I always hear people being like, "Oh, my Apple, like whatever thing like messed up, and I lost my library or whatever." I'm just like, I have this music wherever, whenever. So I don't like streaming, and I know what Spotify pays people and stuff too. So I also don't like Spotify for that reason. And I don't like that people use the algorithm, I don't know, to like show them music, but that's just because I'm an old man and there's a cloud over there that I don't like. So,
well, why don't you shout out where people can find you at then?
Just search for Zega Beach Records. The Instagram tag is wrong. If you try to go Zega Beach, that is not it. You want an underscore. I cannot get Instagram to delete the old account. We were password locked out, and it's a dead account. So Zegama _beach on Instagram. And then there's too many other ones to list. So it's fine.
You can find you on Facebook, Zegama Beach Open Saturated Mind. And I think most of the bands are on Facebook.
Our Future is not. Basically, if you want to look for anything from Our Future, just go on the Zegama Beach Bandcamp.
Okay.
That's where it's housed.
Alrighty. As for me, drop my channel follow so you always know when I go live. You can also sub to get access to the interviews before they hit YouTube and other streaming services, as well as get some exclusive emotes. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. YouTube folks, if you like the video, please drop a like, click on the notification bell, don't forget to subscribe. It's a great way to support me for free. Check out my music, The Sound That Ends Creation, at thesoundthatendcreation@bandcamp.com. My new album, Boomers, Zoomers, Desperate Coomers, is out now. My next guest is Joe Scala from Choke Artist Records. Join us this Wednesday the 12th at 7 p.m. Central for the live cast. Thanks for being here, David. Hope you had a good time.
I did. Thanks, Chris.
Awesome, man. And thank you guys for watching and listening.